perhaps aren't sitting in the policy environment will ask that question. Those who are closer to it will say, well, the nature of international law is that one of the challenges is that it isn't always binding. What is that conversation that we need to have around the binding question? Or is it simply a question of saying we have to accept that that is the nature of this particular beast? How do we ensure that in spite of that, commitments aren't just verbal?
So, I mean, obviously some countries do have legally binding commitments. The UK, for instance, has enshrined net zero by 2040 into law. We have near-term carbon budgets, and there are other nations that will do the same. But ultimately, this is about an economic case, and Graham talked very much about hydrogen. Now, this is a region where you can potentially produce very low-cost hydrogen. It's something that's Royal Highness and I have spoken about in the past. I think there's a lot of work going on in Saudi Arabia. If you look at this region, 2/3 of the area is available and can be used for solar in terms of the availability of the right level of sunshine. 50% of the region has potential for wind. So there is a lot that can be done, and it's about making that economic case. And as Rohan said about leading by example, he's absolutely right. That's what leadership is all about. It's about not just asking others to do, but yourself doing more. And I just want to pick up this point that Sami made about no backsliding. Look, we had a tough negotiation at Glasgow. There were tough negotiations at Paris. In my view, those have to be, what we agreed there has to be the baseline of our ambition. And I think the world, particularly younger people, will be incredibly concerned if we have any kind of backsliding in what we agreed. And we've all talked about keeping 1.5 alive. We need to ensure that that target remains enshrined in these processes. If you let go of that, then I'm afraid all the impacts on discussions on loss of damage and adaptation, it is all going to get a lot worse. So we must hang on to that 1.5 target and have that to aim for.
Excellency Shukri, I know that you were nodding a little bit earlier. Actually, you were nodding on a number of points that His Royal Highness made, as well as Alok. We have to stay focused, and Alok, I just want to hang off of what you've just said now, this question of remaining focused on the 1.5. When you paint out the trajectory, as Alok did earlier, you look at how that target number has come down progressively, it gives you a very different view of what has or hasn't been done, or to what extent the work that has been done has been effective. Again, if I can ask you to comment a little bit about the binding question, not in the case of just Egypt, but in the broader view about how we are, during negotiations, encouraging self-commitment so that people are choosing to make this law and bind themselves without anybody having to run around with a stick to make sure that people behave themselves.
Well, of course, the nature of the multilateral system and the UNFCCC is recognized for what it is. We, I think, would be putting it in danger if we try to create from it an animal which it isn't. Until such time that there is consensus that we need to move and transit to a more legally binding format, and this can only be done with the acquiescence and with the agreement and with the recognition of the value of moving ahead. But that does not deprive parties from legislating to make their commitments at the national level a matter of implementation and the fulfillment of what is the national consensus on the importance of climate action. So we have to, I think, be practical and proceed and evolve in the manner that can be most conducive, but then there is the obligation, there is the civil society, there is those who must keep governments honest, and from that, again, is a matter, and I say, is an incentive rather than pressure that can be very forthcoming and must be highlighted. And this is why we have provided such a wide representation of civil society at this COP, and we value their participation and would like to hear even their voices raised even higher, especially during the second week of the deliberations, so that we are supposedly here as officials serving their needs, and we should remain committed to that. But I hope that, and I won't maybe speculate on what we do to maintain our ambition, but I agree with Alan that there is a baseline that we have agreed in Paris and in Glasgow. We should maintain that baseline and proceed with our ambition. And I'll certainly make it a point to disagree with someone very shortly.
I heard promises and whispers of disagreement. I'm still waiting for this disagreement to appear. As we round off our discussion, if I can then start with you, and I'll give you each a very quick opportunity to make your final remarks. If we can keep them fairly brief, I think that would be great. One thing that we need to make sure happens coming out of COP27 and going into COP28 when it comes to ensuring climate action. What is that one thing? Excellency, I can start with you.
Implementation. I think we have already demonstrated. And I could go on and on. But also, it is both in the legal text, both in the pledges that are being made. If there isn't the sufficient momentum that His Highness referred to at the level of officials, if there aren't the pledges that are being made, if there aren't the buy-in to the initiatives and the projects, then we will not have achieved our objective.
Thank you very much. Excellency?
Leading by example, countries need to have leadership in the net zero ambitions that they put forward.
Great, thank you. Alok?
Reaffirm the commitment to 1.5 degrees, to what we agreed in Glasgow, what we agreed in Paris. And I just want to go back to this point that I made at the start, which is on the G20. So His Royal Highness really played a pivotal role in our G20 meeting last year for the climate and energy ministers. And we of course have the G20 leaders meeting that is going on, which is effectively going to happen in the middle of this COP. What I want is for all of the G20 leaders to show the same level of ambition that they did last year going into COP26 this year. And that will require reaffirmation of leadership from the G20 on this issue, and also a recommitment to what we agreed in Paris and Glasgow.
Your Royal Highness, the last word is yours.
One of the things that we've announced in both forums is our wholehearted commitments towards the forgotten 2.6 billion citizens of this planet Earth who are fending for their way of trying to make a living by burning trees and cooking using primitive materials to make a living, to feed themselves and feed their children. I want to use this opportunity to make a global cry and have our citizens in Saudi Arabia. We should be more inclusive. We should not lose sight of almost a third of the world population who, if we are not to be attending to their well-being, we will be actually causing a much more severe climate change issue by losing our sinks, while said we need to enlarge the sinks. That's why we had our ambition, huge ambition, the 10 billion trees and the 50 billion trees. Even if we can achieve them in so many decades, but it has to happen. I think this cause will enable us to save the sinks, but more important, save the well-being of the 2.6 billion people, that if we all cannot attend to them, I fail to see how can we address this issue in a global manner. And it will continue to be perceived as a condescending, unfortunately.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, the Minister of Energy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Her Excellency Maryam bint Mohammed Al Mahiri, the Minister of Climate Change and Environment of the United Arab Emirates. His Excellency Samail Shukri, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the COP27 President-designate here in Egypt. And the Right Honourable Alok Sharma, the President of the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference. He's from the United Kingdom. A round of applause to thank them. Your Royal Highness, you want to have one more word?
Not one word. I keep them coming. I said, I was going to say the same. Again, by virtue of being proactive, I want to make a few announcements for our friends here. First of all, we are going to be launching a circular carbon economy knowledge hub with the hope that our friends and peers can join us in sharing experiences and make sure that we understand technologies and also we share lesson learned. I think it's very fundamental, so it's going to be, we will kickstart it by 1st January 2023. We've been talking with the UNFCCC Secretariat, and we will be hosting in 2023 the MENA Climate Week. So we will welcome all of our friends to join us then. We also have been working with the ESPA in creating, commissioning or establishing a regional center to advance emission reductions. We've been working with them for the last year. We have got the approval, and next year we will be kickstarting